Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Himes here with my co-pilot, Bob Stewart. Bob, how are you today?
Chad, I'm doing really well.
Going to have a great time today. I know we will. We've got another interview as we're going through our Traits of a Winner series, and we're discussing seeking knowledge. Now, Bob, I might have trouble with this interview. I might really need your help because I got to say I was not a very good student.
There it is.
I wear an Oregon hoodie only to support the fact that my daughter's an excellent student. I made it about a year before a professor even advised me to just drop out of college myself. So, it's bad when your professor is sitting you down and saying, should you really be here? Yeah, Bob, we're going to be talking seeking knowledge. And it only made sense to bring a professor to that conversation because who else seeks knowledge at the level of a professor?
Absolutely. We're super excited to have Dr. Gregg Marshall with us.
There you go. Dr. Gregg Marshall, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate being here.
We appreciate having you here. And you have so many letters that go after your name, and you have all this amazing stuff that you do. I'm just going to turn it over to you personally, Doc, and say, introduce yourself to our audience.
I appreciate it. The first time I became very embarrassed about the number of years of college that I had was when we were getting a loan to buy a house. And one of the questions that was asked was, how many years of college have you had? I counted it up on my fingers and I said, 14. She says, no. I'm not talking about grades K through 12. And I said, I'm not talking about K through 12 either. And she says, my God, what do you do? So seeking knowledge I know about and enjoy it and cheer my faculty on, but I'm a chair of the Department of Respiratory Care at Texas State University. We're the breathing, sleeping people, two things that are really important to do, especially at nighttime, to do them together. And that's kind of our world. And but we're about patient care but also, I have this great opportunity as chair of the department to mentor a faculty and to have an impact on the lives of our students that are out there literally at the bedside taking care of the ventilators that you hear about in COVID all the time. Those are not run by a doctor or a nurse. They're run by a respiratory therapist. So we're kind of the unsung quiet heroes in the background there. But it's an awesome profession, and I love being a professor. Love knowledge. Can't get enough, right?
That's awesome. And I heard in there a few things that I just want to quickly jump on. So Texas State University. So folks, just, don't start cheering for certain schools or anything for poor Doc here. Second in there, I heard breathing and sleeping going together. Now, I have the pleasure of also being the co-host of another podcast called 15-Point Plan. So listeners, I hope you've checked it out. We're going to probably be having Doc join us there to talk about sleep because that is one of the things in the 15-Point Plan. And you mentioned breathing and sleeping. And I got to ask, and Bob, I'm going to ask you as well. You snore? Is that what got you going down this path? I mean, do you have an issue with it? Doc, you a snorer? Bob, you a snorer?
I'm a snorer.
I don't snore, and it really kind of depends on anatomically the size of the box, we call it. When you open your mouth and look in the back of your throat, some people have a small box. And some people have a bigger box. But, it's amazing that when you get oxygen to your brain all night long, when you wake up the next morning, you have a better memory. You're just functioning a lot better. And so stopping that snoring and opening everything up during the night is really important.
All right. Well, we'll remember that. And Bob, I'm glad to hear you admitting you are. I am not, although Nita tells me every now and then she does have to give me the elbow to roll me over, but I'm sure that's normal. All right, Doc. So let's get into this. Let's talk about being a professor. Let's talk about seeking knowledge as we go through this, because that's absolutely one of the things a winner truly does. But I have to know, again, school, not my thing. When did you know that being a professor was the thing for you? Because that meant you were going to go to a lot of school. And when did you make that choice?
Well, if you would have told me when I was 20 or 21 that I would end up being a professor, I would have said that's impossible. That's never going to happen. So this was not something premeditated all through my life. I was always interested in healthcare, and I wanted to be a clinician because I loved the profession that I trained in. And at the end of my training, one of the things that the seniors were asked to do was to teach an assigned topic in a small segment to the underclassmen. And so I was fulfilling my responsibility to do that. And I had a topic that I really felt passionate about, presented it. The students, of course, were sleeping through the whole thing, and they laughed.
Not snoring, though.
That's right. Not snoring. Right.
Good. All right.
And then the chair that was in there at the time came up to me and he said, well, that was really good. And I said, oh, thank you. I'm just glad it's over, and I'm putting everything away. And he says, no, that was really good. I said, well, thanks. I appreciate it. He said, have you ever thought about being a professor? I said, oh, absolutely not. I don't want anything to do with that. I want to be a clinician. And he says, well, I really think you ought to think. Well, the guy hounded me for about 3 or 4 weeks. And finally he said, please fill out an application for me. And I said, if I do that, will you promise to put it at the very back of the file and forget that you even have it? And he said, I will. And then about 3 or 4 years later, he called me in the middle of the night and said, I have a position open. And I came in 1980. This is year 41 of teaching. And I'll tell you, I would have done it just like this if I could do it all over again. It's just been awesome.
Why do you think, why? I guess, can you distill down, what is the essence of why you love teaching?
Okay, that's a great question. I was a very good therapist. I love patient care. I love being able to problem solve and help people, recover quicker and be there for that, life-changing moment when you save someone's life. And when I realized that being a professor, what I could do was I could actually recreate my own biases and my own excellence in patient care in my students and send them out, not trying to have a legacy, but that's what would result. You would get people who are passionate about the profession and care about patients. And that's just been the biggest charge of all. And then as I went through, kind of the same thing that happened to me, I saw the students that I had who were great communicators and really understood concepts. And I would tap them on the shoulder and I'd say, have you ever thought about being a college professor? And they would say, no. And I said, well, put this in your back pocket because someday I want to talk to you about it. And out of my faculty, I have 80% of them who were my own students.
Wow. So you're a winning recruiter, right? You're winning at recruiting. I mean, otherwise, how do you fill your faculty?
That's right. And so we certainly have faculty from other areas that, we recruited onto our team that are outstanding. But, these guys that I've trained, that I had in class, I know what they're made of. I watched them as a student, and I have a lot of confidence in their character and who they are. It's just the safest thing that I found to do that just makes it really enjoyable.
All right, let's look at it from the other side here then.
Okay.
Doc, what are the things you're looking for to show a, professor in the making for those of us out there who would never take that opportunity? What do we need to avoid? What are those things you look for in a future professor?
Well, it's kind of clandestine. They don't know they're being observed by me, but I'm observing them, while I have them in class. And so what I've noticed is that all of these guys that I've ended up recruiting, I noticed they had some real similar characteristics. One was they got concepts. They could take an abstract concept that was being presented and turn it into a practical practicing therapy. Okay, so they could make that transfer from just the idea of in your head, the theory, to how do you make this make a difference in someone's life? So they were good at that. And then I would also see just kind of spontaneously, students would go to them and ask them to explain something, maybe even something that I taught in class and they just didn't get it. And I would hear them say, well, here's that idea. And they would explain it to them in a different way. And the student would go, oh, okay. And so some characteristics like that really made me keep my eye on these guys and eventually kind of give them the tap and just kind of plant that seed. Okay, you may not want to do it now. If you want to run down the hall to ICU and the ER and do all the fast adrenaline stuff, we're adrenaline junkies in my profession. We love it. And so I said, go run, have fun, do everything you want to do. But someday you'll be thinking about, wow, maybe there's another way that I can help advance the profession.
Love
I
that.
might have been in trouble. You might have been looking at me, so I'm glad I wasn't in one of your classes. So, all right. So let's talk about this seeking knowledge, right? Professors seek knowledge. 14 years, you said, in just post school, right? Post college or college school. That's a long time at it. So once you knew you were going to be a student for many years,
right?
How did you focus on that continuous seeking knowledge opportunity in front of you?
Well, one of the things that I really felt like it was important for me to do, I know that we all, we know how to grit our teeth and grind through stuff. But what I tried to do in every course that I took, with the objective in mind of me being a college professor, was I was trying to look at what that course had to offer that would give me new tools in my tool belt, that would allow me to use those tools in a classroom setting so the students could learn better. And when the professors gave us a project to do and said, okay, I need you to do a project, you can use any idea that you like, I would always bring that home to what I would do in the classroom to make it practical. And I even practiced it on my students while I was going through some of the coursework to see how that worked. And even my dissertation, those kinds of things. But professors are kind of natural at wanting to seek knowledge because that's really the ground floor basement for research. We teach our students in research courses, you come up with a research question. I wonder what would happen if. And so when you have that curiosity, that makes you say, well, how do I find out that answer? And so the whole research, even if the answer is no, that's still new knowledge. If the answer is yes, that's new knowledge. So you kind of can't lose because you are clarifying knowledge as you go one way or the other.
Wow. Is curiosity, am I born with it, or could somebody teach me that?
I think everyone has curiosity. Some people have a whole lot more than others. But I think when you can realize that you can harness your curiosity. So what do we do now when we're curious? I mean, I do it. Google. I say, I wonder how old, so-and-so actor is. And we pull up our phone and, oh my God, he's 78. Oh, I didn't know that. So we have this natural curiosity that we have Google now and we can find out. But when students especially can realize that, and I think anybody, not just students, when they realize that the curiosity may domino them into a solution, then all of a sudden, you have a podcast and you're helping people because you're realizing, well, what could happen if we did, what would happen if we talked about this? Would this resonate with people? And so I think it's the curiosity taken to the next level. It's then, well, how do I find out the answer if that would be successful? I need to try it.
Can I ask? I have a question about the arc of your career. And you started.
Then hold that question for me, Bob. Okay. Just because I'm going to jump on what Doc said, because I'm going to be that antagonist on this conversation. Because professor, right? Again, it's just not sitting right with me here, Doc.
Go for it.
You were just talking about curiosity, which is why I want to jump on this question before I let Bob take us down that path. We've been raising curiosity killed the cat. Right? Curiosity don't be too curious is what people have told us again and again. So argue that for me. You're talking about that's what really a professor was. It was someone who said, I'm curious. I want to find the answer. I'm going to keep seeking knowledge. But meanwhile, we're taught as a kid growing up. I mean, what's the most annoying question your 3-year-old asks all day long? Why? Okay.
But you got to get the debate.
Give me the debate on curiosity killed the cat versus curiosity created this life for you.
That debate's over. Google's worth $20 trillion. Like the debate's over. Curiosity's good.
That's just information that's there. I mean, is it not true anymore? Did curiosity not kill the cat? Is that just not appropriate any longer?
Well, if we didn't have curiosity, would we have an Einstein? Would we have an Albert Edison? All those guys were curious. What would happen if? And I think curiosity killing the cat as an adage is to make children be quiet and sit down. It really is. And even our 2-year-olds asking why, they eventually will stop doing that. But it is annoying while they're doing that. But, I did it with my kids. I just met every why. I took them to the moon. Why is the grass green? It's chlorophyll. What's chlorophyll? Well, it's a green substance that's in, then the sunlight hits it and it takes oxygen and turns it in, until they finally went, that's enough. I don't want to hear it more.
I did the same thing with my daughter, and she's in the sciences. So obviously maybe my parents just told me be quiet enough. That's why that stuff never stuck with me.
I say prod that, stimulate that, let it go. That's awesome.
Back to, is it nature or nurture? You said some of us are born a little bit more curious maybe, but like that is a way you nurture a child. They ask why, and you meet them with an answer, letting them know it's okay to ask why.
And I've seen kids where, they're just not that curious. They don't care why the sky's blue. They don't care. But then another little kid really wants to know. And I think that's, even our personalities come back. So that kid that's not curious, maybe he's going to be, putting the widgets together that's going to make it possible to discover things. He has his role, but he's not the guy at the front of the line asking why.
And then we'll all find that thing we ask why about. Because I might be asking why about, well, why is my health a certain way? Or why is this person healthier? And then Bob might be asking things about why is the jump shot this because of his passion for basketball that he grows into.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, Bob, you had a question. I didn't want to cut you off, but I wanted to keep that. I wanted to get an answer on that.
So you've had this 41-year arc of being a student.
Don't rub it in, Bob. Don't rub it in.
No, it's awesome. But
I was 10 years old when I started teaching.
Well, so this arc of your career where things have changed a lot, especially related to access to information and what we can be curious about and how fast we can get the answer to how old that actor is, right?
Yes.
How has that impacted being a professor where now these students, they can go home and check all the stuff you said by Googling it? Like, what has that change been like in the classroom?
They do it in the classroom while you're lecturing. Yeah. And then they raise their hand and say, well, according to Google. So they don't wait till they get home anymore.
Okay.
But, I just have to confess that I remember the first time one computer was brought into the whole College of Health Professions. We stood around in awe with our jaws dropped and watched that little Apple square screen and chink, 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 all the things that were happening there. And then someone talked about email. And I said, well, how does that work? Where do you put the stamp? I don't understand. How's this letter going to get anywhere? Yeah. So yeah, I've seen a lot of differences there. I think that in the universities, we've really tried to find out where the student is living and try to make what we're teaching relevant to that. Now, that's certainly our discipline. We're very pragmatic. We want them to be great problem solvers and great resource finders. And so, we try to do those things now. We know what students are interested in, like podcasts. And so we'll suggest or make an assignment that they have to listen to a certain podcast and come up with some discussion questions. So we're really trying to meet them where they are. But you're right. We've just seen an unbelievable difference from the time that I started teaching in 1980 to now. It's just, it's phenomenal to see the changes. But they've been awesome changes. I love all the changes and rolling with them every bit of the way and trying to learn every single day something new.
What it's so hard. Like, there's so much information out there, right? And as a professor, how do you help your students learn how to wade through that information? Like, what's right, what's wrong, what's real, what's not? Like,
sure.
How do you train the brain to, like, I don't know, maybe become a critical thinker, or like, how do you think about that?
We do a lot of that. We do a lot of critical thinking. Our students have several research courses that they take, whether they're at the undergraduate level or at the graduate level. And the research courses teach them not only critical thinking, but how to be a healthy skeptic about what you're reading, to make sure it's vetted. So we really try to embed that is, where's the truth? Just like you said, what's true and what's not. You can find, crazy facts out there on the internet, and then you'll have, Joe Public, everyday Joe Public saying, but I read it online. It has to be true.
Yeah, and online is the new they said, right?
That's right. That's right.
We can find anything on the internet.
We can. And so in medicine, what we will do is things have to be vetted by validated research that's been done before you'll say this is the effect that this drug will have on a patient. So we don't just take, anyone's word for granted that this is supposed to be really helpful to cure this disease. You have to see what the research says. So you use published, peer-reviewed research to validate the process and the new knowledge that's being shared. And so in medicine, you just don't want someone who's operating on your brain to say, well, let's do this. We've never tried this before. We want them to follow a very prescribed procedure. Do this first, do this second. We don't want any kind of creative experimentalization going on. And the same thing really applies to all of life. We want it to be vetted. We want it to be true.
So give me an opportunity or an experience maybe in your classes. I mean, you've been teaching for a long time. There's got to be one that maybe comes to mind.
Keep emphasizing that.
We are. Yeah, absolutely.
We want everybody to know we brought on a real expert.
Yeah. We're not just talking someone who's done this for a week or two. We're talking, this guy's been doing this.
We masquerade an expert through
a
here.
long time.
We call Bob an expert. We just want to prove that So give me an experience where you saw someone seeking knowledge. Right? One of your students that was seeking knowledge that has now discovered something or really learned something and really eye-opened something. What's that seeking knowledge experience that you've seen, Doc?
What I see with our graduates is that when they get out into the workforce and they're actually working with the equipment and the patients, they look at kind of the way that things are tinker-toyed together, if you will, the tubing, the connectors and everything, and they realize this is really not ideal. What we really need is something that's shaped like this. And so I had a student who was out in the clinical field, saw that if something was shaped like this rather than the other, it might really make a difference. Well, he contacted us and we connected him with the engineering department at our university, and they have a business incubator system out on the outskirts of town. And at that time, it was very new, but they had a 3D printer. And so he took in the dimensions and they whizzed out this device in a 3D shape, and they coated it in plastic. He was able to put it in line to prove whether it really did what he wanted to do. And it did. And it actually opened a door for a patent for him that was shared with the university and him, because you know how those things are. But it was new knowledge and it was discovery in a practical way. We were so proud of him. It was an awesome moment because he was thinking about, how can I make this practical? How can I make this widget work better?
So let's circle back on that. You had said earlier that kind of watching your students is it's cool, right? And,
it is,
and that's a really cool example right there. Like, how fulfilling is it for you? It must be I would imagine, and I don't know, but I would imagine it's very fulfilling to watch these people that you've helped learn how to seek knowledge, who are now out there applying that, like making these discoveries that are potentially changing people's lives, right? Like, it's got to be just ridiculously fulfilling, I would imagine.
It is like my grandmother used to say, it makes you want to pop every button. You're so proud of them, and you just think, wow, I had a part. I can't take full credit at all, but I had a part in their preparation and instilling in them, because we are honestly, actively trying to instill into the students curiosity and to fan that flame so that they're more and more curious, so that they're seeking more and more, and they're trying to come up with solutions. So we're actively trying to make them researchers in their thinking and critical thinkers. Another area that's, I think, really important that kind of goes along with this is with faculty. Because my role as a chair is not just static, I'm the big dog sitting on top and everyone else is doing, my bidding. It's my role to develop the faculty, to give them the resources that they need to be curious, to be researchers. And the chair that was my predecessor, who hired me, and was a wonderful guy, but he was a very strong A personality. And he already had things figured out in his head, and he didn't share those things very often. And I would go to him and say, I have an idea. And he would listen to it, and then he'd laugh and say, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, And so, okay. So after years of that, I kind of stopped doing that. I thought, okay, it's just going to be ridiculous. So when he left, one of the things he said, I'll only leave if you apply for this position because you're the guy that I want to be here. And I said, are you sure I'm smart enough and creative enough? My gosh, you've told me through the years I'm an idiot, But he said, yeah, please do that. And so my management style as a chair, I realized that I had to change the culture of the department. And I know this is varying maybe a little bit, but I had to change that culture by encouraging them to let me know what their thoughts were. So when he left, I pulled the faculty together. I said, okay, guys, this is a different day. I'm a different guy. I don't think like he did. He's a brilliant guy, but I'm thinking different. So here's what I want to do. We're going to meet every week, and I want you to bring me your best ideas. Every week, you bring me at least one idea. And if you have an idea a day, I want you to come to my office and I want us to talk about your one idea. I had one guy that came every day for about 3 weeks and gave me a new idea. And some of them were just incredible. So I think in encouraging, again, people to be curious, encouraging them to think through how to problem solve and be critical thinkers, you have to fan that flame. Whether it's students or whether it's your coworkers or the people that are under you, I think we have a big responsibility to encourage that.
I hear permission. You're like giving them permission to be a part of the team, to add their ideas.
Absolutely.
To keep seeking knowledge and challenging the status quo. Like it's permission, right?
I told them, I said, I'm not smart enough to do this by myself. I need all of our brains on the table. We're going to look at this all together. We're going to come up with answers together. We're going to own it together, and we're going to walk it out, and we'll adjust as we go. And it did. It changed the culture. It took about 1.5 years, but it totally changed the culture so that now my door swings a lot, but it's what I've asked for, and they come up with some great ideas.
I'm hearing in there, you just mentioned it, Bob, challenging the status quo. That takes me back, I think, it was like episode 27 in season 1, where we talked about how to win with Ben, where he talked about creating that. And one of the things that he always has as a great leader is, I want people that are going to challenge the way it is because it's not good enough the way it is. It can always be made better. So it's great to see that we see it every day in our organizations and our opportunities. It's great to see so many other people out there living such a powerful way there, Doc. So I want to kind of sharp left hook here in the middle of all that we're doing. I do that every now and then just to throw things off. Bob and Ben hate when I do that to them. And we were connected with you through one of our listeners, Jeremy. He's the one who made the connection. And while talking with Jeremy, who I've known for a long time and all of that, we wanted to ask you, what was it that led you to be the designated faculty member for the fraternity that was created? And what was so important about investing in younger men that aren't necessarily even following the same path of your courses that you're teaching? What was it that really brought that passion to you to want to be involved in that opportunity?
I'm so glad you asked, because that turned out to be the biggest surprise that I would have never, ever considered when I came to the university. Now, I came in 1980, so I didn't get contacted by these guys that were interested until 1997. So I've been there for 17 years. I was already tenured. I was on kind of a smooth track there. But when I was in college, the college that I went to had a similar fraternity. And it meant a whole lot to me to belong to it, the brotherhood, the things that I really enjoyed. I have a younger sister and don't have a brother. So it was a great experience for me. So these guys walked into my office in 1997 and said, we'd like to explain this concept to you and ask you, would you consider being our faculty advisor? And I didn't tell them that I belonged to something almost identical to it. It wasn't the same, but it was very close. Explain everything. I wanted to hear how they were looking at it. And I told him it would be my honor to be the faculty advisor. So I was the faculty advisor for that fraternity for 21 years until I had to relocate to a North Campus and away from main campus. But Jeremy was in the Founding Fathers. That's what we call them, the Founding Fathers that started Brothers Under Christ, or Beta Upsilon Chi. And it's a I would call it a service organization that's real sensitive to community needs and things that are out there, but also it's about really bonding and brotherhood and linking arms with people to kind of get you through the college experience, because I'm sure you guys have seen, college can unravel some people's lives. It just does. And so looking for those stabilizing factors to make you more successful so that even if you have some craziness going on, you can find your way back. That's kind of what this organization did. And so Jeremy was a founding father. It started with only 7 guys, and he was one of the 7. And it has now probably had about 600 guys that have gone through it. And I got to know all of those guys. I went on full retreats with them. I went to initiations with them. I did, and I wasn't required to. It was just, they were so much fun to hang out with. It was just a blast to get to be around some of the young guys. And so I would go, and they really appreciated it. And then also, I can't tell you how many lunches that I bought for those guys that were starving to death. I'd look at them and say, let's go to lunch and talk. And we'd have lunch, and we'd be able to sit down and talk about their life and talk about kind of what their future was and what could I do to be a help. I've married about 25 of them. I became an ordained minister and was able to be the officiant for about 35 premarital counseling sessions. I mean, things I never planned on. My gosh, that was not part of my life. But, I told them all over and over and over again, because, it's a rotating door. They're coming in, they're going out, they're graduating, that life is so full of doors opening to other doors that you just can't chart from point A to point Z and be there. But enjoy the journey, because as you go through those doors and have this opportunity that you would have never seen, the tools that you're going to put in your tool belt and the experiences that you're going to have are just incredibly important. And don't begrudge that it takes some time to get there. Let the process form you and make you into that guy that you need to be.
Amazing. I mean, again, seeking more knowledge in that opportunity of knowledge of where they are, knowledge of what's going on with them, other knowledge you had to go through to become ordained, to be able to be involved in their lives at such a level and such a powerful way. I think it just wow. All right. I want to know, you've given us some great wins. You've given us some great experiences. What's the biggest win on your career as a professor? If you look back, what's the big win?
Wow. That's a great question. I guess, and this probably doesn't mean much to people outside of academia, but people in academia, we're pretty snobby. There's no doubt about it. Academic snobbery is, 101. That's a course that all faculty go to. But I think through the process of promotion and rank, going up to the level of professor, because there's like 5 different levels and professor is the highest level. I think being able to achieve that personally was very, very rewarding to me, because it kind of gave a nod that, in the crazy world of academia, in a state university where things are wacko most of the time, that I had been able to achieve, even in that environment, something that was valuable. And I think that's probably what I would say. But, aside from that, it's, I think that's still shadowed by just the opportunity I've had to be a part of young men and women's lives through the years. is overwhelming. I go to state conferences and so many of the students, and some of them I can't remember their name, and I go up and I'm looking at their name tag and saying, so yeah, of course I remember you. And to be able to see them and how accomplished they are, and they're doing things I would have never even dreamed of. And they, it's so awesome to be a little part of their life and be a part of their success.
I think ultimately, like in life, we're all looking for connections, right? And you've been able to make so many amazing connections with these people in that time of their life where the trajectory is, you're helping them set a trajectory that's going to, help them realize everything they could ever want to if they, make the right choices. It's bravo, sir. Like,
oh, thank you.
I have I have one professor, particularly from Eastern Washington University, that was a really big impact on my life. Some teachers along the way that I think put me on the right course. And there's no question, and this, that you've helped a lot of people put a trajectory on their life that has ultimately, at the very end of the day, because of the profession you've chosen, they're helping people. The people that you trained are out there now helping people. And that must be a really rewarding feeling.
It is. And to be able to push people forward and celebrate. We really, even as a faculty, we celebrate each other's successes. We don't fight over the grants and the publications. We celebrate. We go to lunch together. We celebrate. And that's so important to transmit that to students, to be able to celebrate each other's successes, I think.
On behalf of all the students that you've had, some of them didn't like you. Let's be honest. We know it. There are some who didn't.
Sure.
Yet overall, a huge thank you, as Bob was saying, on behalf of all of your students, because some of them, you don't even know the impact you had on their lives. Some of them have never been bold enough to tell you. None of them have stayed in touch with you. Some of them have gone off, and every now and then Doc G pops into their head with a thought or a saying or something. We all have teachers and professors like that. And it's very clear from our conversation today that you are one of those. So for any of your students listening, right, or anybody else who maybe wants to contact you to learn a little bit more about it or anything like that, how can anybody reach out and connect with you if they wanted to after this episode?
Well, my email is very simple, docg@txstate.edu. Okay. So anyone that went to Texas State recognizes what's after the @ and so docg, and that gets me. But I would love to hear from any of my students that are listening to be able to celebrate their success, hear what they're doing, and to know that, all of those blood, sweat, and tear hours that they put in, have paid off. And that's what we tell them. You paid a lot of money to be here. Let us give you your money's worth. And they always say, stop, don't give me my money's worth. I say, I promise you, we will give you your money's worth.
Well, hopefully that everybody listening to this episode is getting their money's worth. Wait a minute. They didn't pay for this one. All right.
That's right.
Side note, though, let's talk about not getting their money's worth. Let's give some money away. Doc, this season on Win Make Give during season 2, we've made a commitment to live up to the give part of Win Make Give. And we're making a donation to a charity of your choice based on the number of listens we get in the first 30 days that we're going to send off some money. So tell us, what charity are we supporting today to thank you for taking the time to join us?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. That's so generous and gracious of you guys. And that's the giving. I see that. Yeah, it's awesome. I would love to see some giving to the COPD Foundation, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Those are the people out there. That's our guys. We take care of those people with chronic bronchitis, emphysema, asthma, children with cystic fibrosis. We're taking care of those guys. They're our frequent flyer guys. They come in, we see them all the time when they get sick, and we get to know them and their families so well, and we get bonded with them, and that hurts. But that's part of caring for people and being a human being, is loving people through the whole process too. So COPD Foundation would be awesome, bro. Thank you.
Well, it's our pleasure. And any of our listeners out there who, like me, have asthma, or you have any of the conditions that COPD is going to be helping, we hope that you're going to share this episode and just say to your family and your friends, just listen, because it'll be more money we can give to the foundation. So
that's great.
We want to thank you for taking the time today to join us to have this conversation. I am going to remind everybody, jump over to 15-Point Plan, which is another podcast in the Win Make Give network based on the 15-Point Plan that Ben Kinney created, because we're going to have Doc on there talking about sleep. because it's one of those 15 points, and we're going to get an expert on there talking with us and debating with me, possibly on some sleep thoughts. We hope that you'll join us in our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/win-make-give. We really hope you've subscribed to the podcast by now. If you're a new listener, please subscribe so that it automatically alerts you when the next episode drops. And we want to remind you, until our next episode, go out there and, as always, do good.